Hey, you guys, hope you're well. I just wanted to take this opportunity and let you know about our amazing new business scalability scorecard. So have you ever wondered if you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, and you want to grow and scale the business, but not sure how, and you're looking for some advice and you're looking for some strategies about how you could effectively grow and scale your business? Well, this is your opportunity. We have actually created an amazing business scalability scorecard. It'll take you around 7 to 8 minutes. And at the end of that, it will actually create a report of all of the things that you're doing particularly well in and the things that you need to make improvements to your business. And it's a great tool and a great asset for your business. To get free access to that, go to bit.ly/business-scalability-scorecard. Go there, go now. Take care, see you soon.
This is the Game Changers Experience. Deep dive conversations with leading business disruptors, Olympic athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and influencers from around the world. This show will teach you insights about the winning principles in mindset, productivity, marketing, branding, entrepreneurship, business strategy, and more. Hosted by Productivity Authority, business strategist, former elite athlete, author, and public speaker, Adam Strong.
Tonight's guest is someone rather different. He's a high-performance coach, but actually started life out as an elite athlete. But before that, growing up as a child, he was never sort of expected to become an elite athlete. In fact, I understand he suffered quite badly with asthma and could barely run 100 yards. So only became a runner on the suggestion of his father, and which is quite an impressive feat to then go on and actually end up training with the world record holder, Mo Farah. I believe he's record holder, isn't he? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's an incredible character, and you were his training partner for a while. Gone on and become a high performance coach, getting people to race through their scaling of their businesses, and also a champion of women in business and equal opportunities, which is fantastic. Now, this man has interviewed a whole range of A-listers and been on the front cover of far too many magazines for me to count, but Forbes included, I believe. And one of the people that you've interviewed is actually John Travolta. So please give a very warm welcome to tonight's guest, Adam Strong. And according to his banner, aka the Game Changer, which is right. Adam, take us back to your childhood. So you start being an entrepreneur at about the age of 11. When did the running come in? Was that after your entrepreneurial pursuits, or?
Believe it or not, it was actually at the same time.
Right.
So 11 was a bit like a midlife crisis, right? My midlife crisis came much earlier on, rather than kind of your average sort of 40 to 50-year-old. Mine came at 11.
Right.
And it was purely down to a few life events, which really changed me as a character.
Mm-hmm.
So lost my hair through alopecia, through stress and worry. Got sort of shifted into foster care and things like that.
Oh,
and like bullying when you're younger, and most people have experienced bullying as well. And just for me, I was a bit of an introvert when I was younger, to be honest with you. My confidence wasn't particularly high, purely because of the life events, and sort of a bit like being in a boxing ring, really. You take a few hits to the ribs and stuff like that, and that's kind of how it felt, really.
Mm-hmm.
So 11 was a really interesting age, and it's when you start going through sort of your changes anyway. Mm-hmm. And you can really start to see world in a slightly different perceptional way. Me, I wasn't, or I try to not really judge myself against other people. That wasn't really me, because I was a very introverted person. But entrepreneurism was always it was in my lifeblood from the age of 11. So
I think when you grow up in an environment of almost a lack of money. I think sometimes that can spark. Would you agree, the whole entrepreneurial
Yeah, I mean, it
mindset?
can make or break you. I mean, for
Mm,
me, we had to be resourceful,
yeah,
and it's a bit like entrepreneurship today. You need so many businesses try to start up a business on the shoestring budget. It's exactly
yeah,
the same principle, right?
hmm,
It's tough, like
yeah,
really tough.
yeah,
But for me, being an 11-year-old, yes, we grew up. It was me and my brother. My mum was a single mum at the time, suffering from mental depression, mental health issues, couldn't really work. So we lived off the estate on a
yeah,
top floor flat council estate. That's effectively our name. And, at Christmas, well, we used to go to school. All the kids would have their Christmas lists and Santa Claus would bring, their Christmas presents and whatever it is. That wasn't the case for us. We had to
yeah,
share Christmas presents, and that's how
mhm,
tough, life
yeah,
was. But you know what? We were happy, or we
yeah,
try to be generally happy.
yeah,
And money wasn't everything to us back in the day. We just have to be resourceful. So
yeah,
one of the things that we did, well, or I did specifically, and as I was, like I said, I was very introverted when I was at the age of 11. And going through those life changes, I was just kind of out walking one day, and I just appeared out of nowhere.
mhm,
These golf balls in rivers and streams, right? And I was just
yeah,
like, well, where did these come from? And I just
yeah,
continued to walk through the woods, and obviously this, not knowing that there was a golf course right next to the
yeah,
actual nature reserve. I thought, okay, well, that's two and two together.
yeah,
So next day I went back. This was at the weekend, of course. I went back and I jumped into those rivers and streams, started foraging through all the bushes, and
mhm,
started collecting and finding these lost golf balls.
right, yeah,
So effectively, that's what I did, and I went back with a bucket. I didn't even have money for Wellington boots or anything. I just literally just bare feet in, came up
wow,
to like knee to waist height, whatever it is, and go through the stinging nettles. You know how it is.
yeah,
And then golfers, which would generally be sort of average age of over 65, because it was one of those clubs which would sort of attract the types of people with a
yeah,
slightly elder, mature
mhm,
age group, would see me walking around the fairway, and they would kind of run up and say, "Whoa," or kind of, they'd be really concerned about my safety, about the fact that they didn't want to hit an 11-year-old boy in the head with a golf ball. So that was kind of interesting. But when they did
yeah,
come over, they were intrigued to find what I was doing, and I was
mhm,
carrying a bucket around. And
yeah,
they saw that I had golf balls, and they were like, "So, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm finding your lost golf balls." And they're like, "Oh, that's interesting."
yeah,
And I remember one of the very first conversations we had, actually. Uh,
mhm,
there were a group of four, I think it was,
mhm,
sort of men or whatever it was, and they were about 5 holes, because it was an 18-holer.
yeah,
And there's not, and if you're a golfer, I don't know if any of your listeners are golfers, but
mhm,
if you've got 5 holes left and you've only got about one ball left, you're panicking. You're thinking, I can't let this person beat me. So then,
mhm,
you're thinking to yourself, oh, right. Then they started making me offers on my golf balls, because they were really impressed with some of the golf balls that I picked up. I picked like a Dunlop, and a Slazenger, a Nike, and these are like premium brands.
yeah,
And then what would happen is then we would go into a sales negotiation. Right,
wow,
they'd start offering me X amount of pounds, say like £4 for a golf ball, and I'd be like, well, I know this golf ball brand new is worth 12, so why don't we hit him with about £5?
my
And
God,
believe it or not, so it was kind of being cheeky to be kind, but
yeah,
in fairness, I was actually doing them a favor, and they were doing me a favor. So the very first time that I did this, actually, I actually went home with literally my pockets full of pound coins, and
right, yeah,
my mum was like, "Where did you get all this money from?" It was like, "Did you steal this money?" type of thing,
yeah,
And I told her the story, and she was so proud of me. And I obviously gave her some money towards groceries, and
oh,
kind of kept for savings and stuff. So
yeah,
that was, for me, that was kind of my first taste of entrepreneurship. But
yeah,
it just in that first episode,
yeah.
I suppose,
I
of
love the
entrepreneurship.
cheekiness of it and negotiating at the age of 11.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, what have you got to lose? It's the same in
Yeah,
any everyday principle, right? If you go
yeah,
to a market, if you go to a shop and you see the full price of something, right?
Yeah.
hey, you could turn, and even with a car, like many of you guys, a lot of people get intimidated, or they feel like they shouldn't do those things. But actually, do you know what? If you don't ask, you don't get.
Well, exactly. Yeah. No,
Right?
I love it. I think it's great. So how old were you when you were taken into foster care? Was this before or after this sort of 11-year-old?
Yeah, slightly before, so 10 years old.
Okay. Right. Okay. And then you're back with your mum, which must have been great.
Yeah, about a year later, exactly. Yep.
Right. Yeah. And then and at that time, when did the running come in? How did that actually transpire?
Same age, 11 years old, believe it or not.
Right. Yeah.
So, what I was going to say, so through encouragement of my dad, who had got into running a few years before, he was like, well, why don't you try some running? It might sort of help you boost your confidence and stuff. And I was a bit reluctant, but my parents were separated from a very young age anyway. So my very first encounter at the running track actually was going down to the athletics track myself, because I never really had that support around me. I didn't have mentors. I didn't have support in loving, should we say, circles of family or friends. I just did everything myself. So went down the running track myself at the age of 11. And I remember this.
Guts. At the age of 11 to go off on your own down to the running track.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, I was always willing to try new things. I wasn't afraid of trying new things. So I remember going to the athletics track first time, and this lady appeared over this big sort of counter. Now, I wasn't the tallest person at the age of 11, and she appeared over there, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't see you there." I was like, "Yeah, how can I help you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm interested in potentially joining the athletics club." I was like, "Okay, cool. What experiences have you got?" And I'm like, "0." And then she's like, "Well, what do you want to get into?" I was like, "Well, maybe distance running, a bit of cross country." And she's like, "Okay, okay." Well, so she walks me down to the athletics track, and then she started talking to me. Yeah. And she was like, "So you've got no experience? Is there anything else I need to know?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm an asthma sufferer." And she went, "What? You're an asthma sufferer?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, and asthma was kind of on and off for me. But when I first started, and it's interesting, when I first walked down to that athletics track and I saw these athletes, and some of them have been training for years, right? I started comparing myself to those athletes about where I was. I just thought, what, this is I'm completely out of a different league. These people are on a different planet, and I'm already thinking about quitting before I've even started. Right. Then I'm thinking to myself, what's the point in that, right? I haven't even started. How do I know if I'm any good at something unless I try things, right? Like, it's a bit like dipping your toe in cold water, right? You don't really know, or venturing into something where you're kind of like, you've got your comfort zone. You're really not going to know how to get out of the comfort zone unless you actually try it. Does that make sense?
Yep, certainly does.
So this is where I met my first coach. And also my former training partner, Mo Farah, who you'll know, current World Olympic champion. This is where we met together, actually. He's originally from Somalia, came to the UK to get away from war, of course, and separated, was living with his aunt. And similar backgrounds, really. He lacked a lot of confidence, lacked English. I lacked confidence through my life-changing events. But eventually...
So you're about the same age? You two?
About the same age, yeah. But he was about a year younger than me.
Okay, right. And this is in London? Was this in London?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So which athletics club was this?
Well, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was called Hounslow Athletics Track.
Right, okay. Yeah, so it's
this
out
is West London. Yeah, it's West London, exactly. So, and this is where we met, and we effectively, used each other's, I suppose, I wouldn't say weaknesses, because they weren't really a weakness, but I suppose our downfalls as a way to compete against each other, to jeer on each other on. And, while all the other kids were playing video games, and we were out slogging our guts on a Thursday evening, -4 temperature on an 8 o'clock in a Thursday. So that kind of gives some context, really. But, when I first started off running, I could barely run 100 meters without having sort of a hyperventilation, if you like, attack. But then within 6 months, my asthma had completely disappeared.
Wow, that's impressive. Actually, I was an asthma sufferer as well from a tiny baby. It was basically stress related and common cold. And the doctor at the time actually said to my mother, he said, just get her swimming, make sure she swims all her life and things. So, so I swam and we were, But it's interesting actually, because we didn't have a lot of money. I mean, if you look at my childhood, you'd say I was very privileged. I went to private school and we had ponies and stuff like that. However, my parents were incredibly resourceful. So at one point we went to live overseas so that my brother could go to boarding school back in the UK, because the company that my father worked for paid the school fees. And then my mother got a job in the school that we ultimately went to for a bit, so that again we got huge discounts on the school fees. And the ponies we had, well, they were either on loan to us, a lot of them, and then they were rejects, sort of problem ponies that we used to bring on, or they were they were just basically problem ponies. One of them that my parents actually they bought for £50. It was going to the meat market.
Oh my goodness.
It was barely even broken in. And then the neighbour, a farmer, he had a crew yard of horses, and he had a groom, and she had Sundays off. And so my brother and I was about 9, so my brother was 12. We used to do the groom's job on a Sunday. In return, we got a field, a stable, and hay and straw for our ponies.
Fantastic.
And one field a day. So it's incredible what you learn to do when you focus your mind and you actually really want it, and you just go out and you're determined. So, and I used to be up at 5:30 in the morning, come rain, shine, middle of winter, whatever the temperature, riding my pony in the dark or mucking them out or whatever. So I can totally identify, but completely, I mean, mine was a very privileged sort of existence, and yours was leading you to incredible resourcefulness.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, so sorry to have butted in there, but it I think it is so wonderful how people's journeys can look so different on the face of things, but actually are running in sort of a parallel universe.
100%.
Yeah. So what sort of level did you get at with your elite sport? I mean, what is the definition of an elite sport?
Well, for me, I got to national level. So,
Wow.
There's different levels in athletics. The same with anything. You can get to you can represent your school, you can get to county level, and get to national level. So there's about 3 or 4 different levels, depending on the sport, of course.
Yeah. So, and did that help you getting into university, do you think? Because you then went on to uni. Did you go straight from school to uni, or did you do something else in between?
Well, school, college, and university. Yeah. So that's what I followed.
Yeah, exactly. And you did sports science at uni, so you were obviously really into your whole athletics.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole discipline of the athletics. I mean, you've just said basically you started in the you were doing it in the winter on a cold, wet, windy Thursday evening.
Absolutely.
And your distance, how far did you used to run?
Well, typically I liked running the sort of 10-miler. Those were the kind of distances that I liked, really.
Right.
So, for a young person, 10 miles, 6 miles, pretty long distances.
Yes, yeah, that is a hell of a long distance. So it's and so you were obviously do you think the fact that you had this little training buddy in Mo actually helped determine what you were going to do, or did you sort of feed off each other? Because I mean, when kids are friends, they tend to want to do what their friend's doing, don't they?
I think for me, even though we didn't go to the same school, One of the things I learned from athletics is being able to apply habits and principles of high elite sport, and being able to effectively bring that into later on in life, which is effectively what we do in our business, in what we do in our international consultancy. So, and there's a lot of, there's a few people out there that already transition from elite sport into running their own business, for example. We do exactly that in a nutshell, but just with a slightly different angle.
No. So, what is your sort of angle? How do you, how do you coach your clients, basically?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we only work with established business owners. So we don't work with these startup companies.
Right.
It's not really our specialism. So we mainly work with the existing business owners or entrepreneurs that have got sort of a few years behind their belt, essentially, because one of the key core fundamentals in running any business is obviously mindset. You've got to make sure that you've conditioned your mindset. The biggest problem for a lot of people in what we found is, and you may have experienced this before in your own business, is when you get stuck. So you get to a point in your business where you plateau. Right. Okay. And what tends to happen what tends to happen with our clients is they're normally at capacity. So they're normally at about 80% plus capacity. They plateau, so their growth is flat level. And then they get stuck for months or years, and they're not sure about how to take things to the next level. So it might be that they need to systemize. It might be that they need to bring in more people. It might be that they might need to be in some new things, just a slightly different perspective that can help them get back into growth mode. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So you help them determine where they need to go next.
Correct.
Yeah. Now I remember that I used to have a beauty salon, and we hit sort of a plateau, and it was like, and although it was interesting actually, because I read the E-Myth years ago, but you just you just get to this point in your own business, and suddenly you seem to forget some of those things, and you plateau, and you're like, well, what am I doing wrong? What's going on? And you get a coach, and then they point you back, and you think, Flippin' I read that 10 years ago, but you've forgotten. I'm old. I've been around quite a long time. And then you take the coach, and boom, you're off flying again. And it's so wonderful, isn't it? You must get it must be incredibly rewarding what you're doing.
100%. I would never change it for the world, if I'm honest with you. And one thing I've really learned is making sure that you're aware of your strengths and you delegate your weaknesses, because what I call perceptual awareness of what is happening with. So normally the biggest bottleneck in any business is the individual that runs it. That's normally the biggest bottleneck, right? So we all know that, right? But being able to actually take responsibility and accountability about how to move forward is a completely different ballgame. And so, and it's all easier said than done, right? With me telling you guys to do this, right? But in reality, in principle, it's not that easy. One of my clients is a bit of a control freak, for example, and I just said, do you know what? Just let it go. Let it go. You've got to learn to let go, because if you continue to hold on, and it's the same with anything. If you run a business or you build a business from scratch, right, and you put your blood, sweat, and tears into it, right, and then you've got to get to the point where you've got to start letting go and start to give responsibility to other people, right? It then is a whole new ball game, because it's like, oh my God, this is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. It's a bit like when you've got kids, right, and you don't want them to grow up. Right, but do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I don't want them. No, I don't want them. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. And listen, I know, because I'm a parent. I've got 4 kids, so I'm going through those transitional phases right now.
Yes, I know. I've got a son as well. He's 23, and I've been so lucky because of the whole COVID thing. He's actually been with me for an extra 18 months that I didn't ever expect to have. But
Wow.
but it is so hard to just let them go and make their own mistakes as well. But going back to this whole thing about with the entrepreneurial world and the people that you're working with, generally speaking, we are a pretty controlling sort of bunch of people. So if you were you work with people who are already established, so they've already got their sort of their whole rigidity and way of doing things. But I'm just thinking back to my journey. And so when I first left uni, I worked in the family business. Now, it was only a very small, it was my father, and then he had a team of about 10 girls, and replaced them as often as he could with machines, actually. So he tried to be automated. But he wasn't into paperwork. He wasn't into systems and stuff like that. I came in fresh out of uni, and we decided we'd go down the ISO 9000 route. Now, at the particular time, I couldn't see the point in writing out all these flipping systems telling me what I had to do. However, that period of the business was absolutely fantastic because I did create the systems. I didn't like having to do them in the format for ISO 9000, but actually creating the system meant that the business went from a loss-making position to in 2 years. So we went from turnover of around about £16,000 a month. Now, this is back in 1991.
Yep.
To a turnover of around about £60,000 to £75,000 a month.
That's a big jump.
It is a big jump back in those days, particularly, and things. And it was just because we got control of the numbers and we had systems in place. Now, I only stayed for 2 years. I then went off backpacking. And, you know, it was easy for me to delegate to somebody else to say, right, okay, come in. You can do that bit because I really don't like writing these systems for ISO 9000. It's not my specialty. I'm better on coming up with other systems onto how to make the business work. You can then translate them into and things. But it also then meant that when I moved on to go backpacking, the business was in place. Now, I then had a beauty salon later on. And once again, you just grows up higgledy-piggledy and you're doing everything. And then you get the business coach and it's like, create those systems again. So what advice would you give to somebody who's coming in where you are seeing where they're at and what they need to do and how hard it is for them to break those reins of control? What would your advice be to people starting out?
Well, for startup companies, first thing before anything else is to really get your core foundations right. Yeah. What I mean by that, so when I say core foundations, so there's a few. You could write this down as a checklist if you wish to. I would highly advise it. But one of the things that I would really start from core foundation, that like when you start with any house, for example, when you're building, is establishing what your vision, your mission, and your core values are. Yeah, those are 100%. They're gonna pay dividends down the line. Yeah, so that's the first thing. Secondly, is, you know, who's your ideal avatar, right? Who is your ideal avatar? Who specifically is your ideal avatar? Who do you like to work with? You know, like when I say specifically, I call it the best friend case scenario. So most people have got either a good friend or a best friend in their life. Yeah. You generally know most things about that best friend. You know, yes, apart from the basics of knowing their age and so forth, and when their birthday is, you know about their core values, you know why you like them, why you dislike them, you know what their habits, their routines are, you know, everything about that best friend, right? Yeah. Everything that you know about your best friend is what you need to know about your ideal avatar, right? Because really essentially,
putting it.
You know, so if you know more about your avatar, and it's one of the things that we do with our clients, I get our clients to go to Google and find an image which relates to your ideal avatar. Yeah. It's like, and one of our clients, believe it or not, she printed out multiple copies of their ideal client, put them around the house, and it looked like the client was actually looking at that at them, right? So every time that they were having a conversation or speaking to their subconscious, it's like they're consistently being looked at. So one of our guys, who's a copywriter, believe it or not, he has been procrastinating on building his online course on copywriting. I was like, okay, so he didn't have an ideal avatar, so we got him to do it, got to do the printout. And now I said to him, now you've got to think that those eyes are looking at you. They've already paid for their course, and the sense of urgency has gone from 0 to at least 100%. So do you want to let these people down? So that's how you speed. You know what I mean? This is how you speed up implementation, right? If people have already paid for your stuff, right? Okay, and you've got eyes looking at you, right? You're gonna, every time you walk past that image, you're gonna feel guilty. You think, shit, I need to go back to the computer. I need to go work on that straight away, right? So that's gonna really help you. So that's number 2. Number 3, you need to make sure that you really know what their core problems are. What's their big pain points? What's their mistakes? What's their problems, right? Because the more that you know about your ideal avatar and how you can be a solution finder, not a problem solver, but a solution finder, the quicker you can make money.
How do you recommend your clients actually find out what their ideal avatar's core problems are? Because we all sort of think, oh, I know what their core problems are. But it's the language they use, isn't it, that's key to it?
Well, yes and no. So so I tell you a personal story, right? So when I first got into entrepreneurship, I automatically assumed what I thought my clients' problems were, right? Biggest mistake in the world, because then I started creating productization or creating a productization model which was not related to them. They didn't understand that. They're like, why the hell is this guy creating this stuff and I don't want it, right? So one of the biggest mistakes is that people can make is creating a product, automatically assuming someone's problem, and guess what? They have 0 clients or customers.
Exactly.
Right? So what you need to do is you need to think about it from a perspective of not why people buy, but why people don't buy, right? It's because you don't understand me. It's because you don't communicate to me in the right way. It's because you're not hanging on the right social media channels. It's because you don't go to the right associations, go to the right places. You're not here on the right times of the day. It's those things that you really need to take into consideration. It's those little tiny intricacies.
So how do you recommend people find that sort of stuff out?
Yeah, great question. So if I wanted to target specifically, say I wanted to target, I don't know, say mums between the ages of 35 and 45. I'm just randomly putting something out there, right? So I know specifically that they're probably going to be generally busy during the day. So they're probably going to be more active in the morning or in the evening. Okay. I'm going to now target, depending on what profession so I could go after, say, professional women that work in the city, for example. I know for a fact that I now need to go target on LinkedIn. So I might create some polls. I might do some articles. I'm going to create some content and send it to them and say, hey, so listen, I'm doing some market research and I'm thinking, and the idea here is to create conversations. So sales conversations are 2 completely different things, right? The goal to networking and building relational capital is not to sell them. The goal is to create a relationship, build rapport, build trust, because currency of today is trust, and trust is the number 1 currency of today. And so that's what you've got to learn to do. And then once you've established that, once you've found out from them, from the horse's mouth, through polls, through conversations, it could be through what we're doing right now, right? So having conversations with you guys that are in your tribe, it could be say, hey, so I'd love to get your feedback on here. People love giving their own opinions. They love it.
True.
Right? So that, to me, the more market research that you do, the better that you're going to be more prepared. And the other thing as well, and this is really, really important, one thing that everyone needs to take into consideration is the quicker you fail, the faster you will succeed. It's as simple as that. Embrace failure because it is a learning curve.
No, fastest is it. I love that, and I agree wholeheartedly with all of those. So so you get your market research, you understand then, and you actually get then the language that they're using as well, don't you?
Correct, absolutely. So you start speaking,
Yeah.
you start speaking in a language that they understand. So each client is going to have a particular, I suppose, a particular way that you can communicate with them, a particular way. So not everyone is going to be attracted to me. And guess what? I'm okay with that. Personally, I don't give a shit, but that's just me. And so, and that's the thing. Like, as long as you are showing up, based on your core values with love, authenticity, alignment, and people that love you for who you stand for, you don't need to compare yourself to other people. You don't need to worry about pleasing other people.
No.
Just be you, because people will love you for being you.
Yeah. And yes, and that is people buy from people. Sorry, my dog is deciding she wants to kick in there as well. Yeah. But it's people buy, obviously they buy from people and things, but it's also it's the terminology that people use as well. It's understanding, do they call their clients or do they call them customers, or students, or how do they refer to themselves? And so it really, how deep do you go?
Well, I go as deep as possible, because the more that you understand your clients or your customers or whatever it is. Now, there are a big difference between clients and customers. I'm sure just to establish, customers normally buy one time. Clients generally buy over and over and over and over again.
Okay. Yep.
So there's longevity in the relationship. So if I'm a travel agent and I sell flight tickets, normally it's a customer that's buying flight tickets, right?
Yeah.
Or travel insurance or whatever it is. But if I'm working with a client who wants me for business consultancy, then generally they're a client because it results in over time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense, and it's interesting, and it is really interesting learning the terminology and the nuances of what people are saying and how they are and things. Now, one thing that we've noticed with you, and I mentioned just a tiny bit in the intro, was the fact that you have interviewed so many of these A-lister stars, people like John Travolta, and now my brain's gone completely blank because I'm thinking back to when I was about 11 years or 10 years old and Grease was out. John Travolta, so he stands in your mind. I mean, he's not in the sort of entrepreneurial world as such. He's in a completely different league to us. What do you learn from doing those interviews?
Yeah, that's a good question. So with successful people, right? So, and with John Travolta, I'll just quickly correct you. I shared the same stage with him. So I was speaking on the same stage. So it's all good. Yeah. But, so for me, I love to learn from people that are more successful than me, Yeah. And so I've got a podcast, which you'll know about, called the Game Changers Experience. Yeah. And on there, I tell you what, over the last weeks, we've been running this. We've got now 110 episodes. Wow. We do two sessions a week. One's an interview, and normally one's a sort of a solo episode or whatever it is. But all the interviews that we do, or what I do, I just enjoy and have fun. Make sure you're prepared and things like that. But don't treat these people as any different from yourself, right?
No.
Because at the end of the day, the only difference between me and John Travolta is that John Travolta is known for Hollywood and Grease and all the movies and whatever it is. But actually, what you don't know about John Travolta is that he's a pilot. He's actually very entrepreneurial. He's actually invested in a number of fintech and technology-based businesses, and he's an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think he would have been that way had he not become so sort of successful as a film star? Or do you think, I mean, it's a bit like footballers, for example, who, I mean, I know a lot more of them are becoming sort of more academic these days, and they're encouraged to, but historically they had a one-track mind on football. And so many of them lost their money, and now they're being coached in what to do with their money so that they don't sort of have it and lose it all in 2 seconds. Do you think that that's John Travolta has almost been schooled into becoming an entrepreneur?
In a way, yes or no. I think from my perspective, I mean, I can't speak for John,
No.
but from the people that I've interviewed,
Yeah.
whether it be Marshall Goldsmith, whether it be Dr. John D. Martini, whoever it might be, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, there's a certain pattern that all of these people actually move.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is, so the pattern that they use is they are always learning. So if you're
Yeah.
not learning, you're dying. It's as simple as
Yeah.
that, right? You're learning and growing every day. And there's another thing that I've learned, especially over the last sort of couple of years in particular, is that the more that you serve people, and when I say serve people, I don't mean I'm talking about in the being of a restaurant serve people, but I mean serve people with value.
Yeah.
Right, the more that the universe rewards you.
Yeah.
Now, Power of Manifestations, The Secret, you probably read that, watched that, whatever it might be. These things are true. I never believed in it. But the last couple of years, honestly, I can safely say more things have come to me over the last 2 years than they have done in my entire career. All because my mindset, number one. Number two, my belief is that you the power of association. The more that you hang around with successful people, the more that you learn from them.
Yeah.
So and I'm a big believer that you become the 5 most common people you hang around with. So if you want to be a broke person, go hang around with broke people. If you want to be successful people, it's successful people, right?
Exactly.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
But all that
it's the whole it's the whole mastermind thing of sort of Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich as well, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, that was a great book. I mean, you could read that over and over and again. But one of the things, I mean, one of the things that really drives me insane, especially with people that continue to learn, and we become sponges, right?
Yeah.
So we can always become very overwhelmed as well, right? With too much learning and whatever it is. What I'm a big believer is that if you learn something, whether it be a skill, whether it be a habit, whether it be a routine, whatever it might be, is practical application. The proof is in the pudding by taking action. So I love it when people get on a call with me and they're like, oh, so I've got this and I've got this, I've got this. Okay, prove it. Where's the results? Yeah. You telling me all this stuff, where's the results, right?
Yeah.
And so they're all mouth and no action type of thing. For me, I'm an action taker. And so for me, and like I said, the way that I'm wired is very different from other people, right? Just because I'm an action taker doesn't mean that it's right for everybody.
No.
But like I said, we're all at different paths. We all have different personalities, and we all have to be conscientious. Like I said, perceptually aware about what our strengths are.
Yeah. And the other thing is that working with people, acting as a coach for one person, do you find that you actually learn as much from them as they learn from you?
Again, it depends on the interview. Yes and no. I always like, even if I pick up a golden nugget from somebody, then guess what? I say it was a successful interview. But in most of the circumstances, like for me, I'm very particular. And again, this is not from an ego perspective. No. I know specifically who I like to speak to, the types of personalities I like to. For me, I'm also like to learn, right? I like to learn from people that are better than me, that I know that can do things more efficiently than me, that are more successful than me. Because the more that I learn from them, the more I become successful in my mindset, but also in everything that I do in life.
Exactly. But it doesn't have to be that they're more successful in every aspect of the life. It can just be one area that you feel that you need building up and nurturing.
Correct. Absolutely. 100%. Yep.
Yeah. So which is what I absolutely love. And it's that whole thing that you can, it doesn't matter who you speak to, you can learn. So you can learn from a complete newbie into the whole entrepreneurial world, because they're coming at it with a completely fresh set of eyes, and they haven't. Yeah, I absolutely love hanging around people because they're so excited, they're new, and especially if they've had no knockbacks so far, then it's that learned behavior. Oh, you learn to become slightly more fearful later on. However, you also can flip that on its head. The more failures you have, the more resilient you are.
True.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100% true.
Yeah. It's not how many times you fall over, it's how many times you get back up and things. But I would actually just like to ask, how do you manage to get to interview these people like John D. Martini?
It's very well. That's a good question. So a lot of people will be like, well, and I get this question quite a lot
Yeah,
because
intriguing.
everyone would love the opportunity to interview Dean Martini or Olympic athletes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you have to ask the question.
Yeah.
For me, I'm all big into collaboration. So I love to collaborate with people.
Yeah.
I've got a big vision. So I sell them on my vision, first of all, right? People buy people.
Yeah.
So I know for a fact that what Google says about me, what social media says about me, what my LinkedIn profile says about me has a reflection about what I do and show up in life, right?
Yeah.
And if there's an incongruence, then guess what? It's not going to go.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing, like I've put on virtual conferences and virtual summits. I've got people on my podcast, and most of these people, they normally, you would pay these people like tens of thousands of pounds, for them to do these things. And most of the time, I would probably say 99% of the time, I get them complimentary because they buy into me first.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
Does that make
excellent.
sense?
Yes,
Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
So when people come to me and they approach, I get so many people, by the way, at least twice daily. You say, "Oh, I love your podcast. Oh, I was listening to this particular episode. Oh, I'd love to come onto your podcast. This is what we're going to talk about." Bing, delete. Because for me, that comes from a place of ego, right?
Yeah.
Anyone could say to me, "Oh, I love the podcast. Great. What do you love about my podcast? Did you leave a review? If you really want to, associate yourself with people that are sort of what I call higher up in the food chain, if you like, you want to call it like that, or people that are more successful than you. You've really got to, especially it's always good to ask if there's an introduction. So a lot of these connections come from introductions, right? I'll ask, hey, so do you know of anyone I'm looking for a certain particular personality that would like to be part of this vision. Great, I have someone for you. Fantastic. And then they interview, and then they recommend me. So all of these, and sometimes it takes months. It can take years to get to, really core people.
Yes.
But so that was kind of
that whole thing of asking, isn't it?
You have to ask. If you don't ask, the answer will always be no.
Exactly. You just have to put it out there as well. And
absolutely.
And as you say, that whole visualization and manifestation.
100%. It works down to a T, and selling your vision, because the more that, and I'll give you a really good example of this, because your listeners are probably waiting in anticipation. Last year, back in March, which was around pandemics, COVID times, we decided, when everyone was in a state of fear and in a state of insecurity and people that were scared about their businesses, we were thought, you know what, this is a great opportunity. Why? So I created this vision of, okay, let's take our crowd, our tribe, our audience to a place of safety and security.
Yeah.
Right? How's that going to make people feel? It's going to make them feel a lot better about themselves than it is now, right?
Yeah.
So I sold that vision about helping 100,000 entrepreneurs from around the world to do exactly that.
Wow.
Then I reached out to my network, which is, I've got a strong network in LinkedIn in particular, and I got 31 of the 31 of the world's game-changing world industry change makers, and I approached them with that vision, and every single one of them bought into it. They're like, "What do you need? What do you need?"
That's an impressive result, that they all bought into it.
They all bought into it because, again, they bought into my energy, my enthusiasm. They bought into the fact that I'm doing something of service without. And here's the thing: the event was free.
Wow!
It was completely for free. Like literally, people could get access to these speakers, which if it was a live event would have cost £10 million.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
And would have taken years to get it organized.
Yeah.
So with getting all of these people together in a space of 7 weeks for the turnaround time as well was absolutely
that
insane.
is pretty impressive. Yeah, 7 weeks and getting them all in one place, one virtual place at the same sort of time. That is
correct.
Yeah, that must have been quite a logistical nightmare.
Yes and no.
Did it just all work somehow?
It was all pre-recorded because we had to launch it fast.
Yeah.
But what we could do is see. So for me, I used to be really bad at marketing, but in the last 2 years, I've turned into I suppose I would turn into a bit of a digital nomad / learn what works in the digital world.
Yeah.
And hey, you know what? It's paid off through the hard work that we've done and through me and my team.
Yeah. And it's basically taking action, trying something, analyzing the results and tweaking as necessary.
100% experimentation. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah, no, it's and as you said, the more failures you have, then the more successful you're going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Don't look at them as failures. I think is something you sort of propose, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just obviously the whole the usual thing of their learning opportunities and things. So now I'm actually intrigued because you do write a lot, and you've got you've written 2 books, and you've got a third one due out fairly shortly, and you also get into loads of magazines. You're on the front cover of magazines. You're writing articles that are being published. Where did you learn that skill? How did you learn that skill?
Yeah, it's not really a skill as such. Like, again, for me, every business goes through cycles, right? So for us, in our business, for example, we have mainly an international reach. That's mainly that's what we do. And so with regards to how do I get into magazines, how do I get writing books and stuff like that? So as you know, as you've pointed out, I've got my 3rd book coming out in October of this year, which was a co-collab book, believe it or not. So what we'll do is me and my publisher will create a big marketing strategy and a plan, which we've already got, and then a PR strategy, which will attract journalists, which will attract PR, which will attract attention, not just to me, but also to our contributing authors as well. So again, like I said, it's not about me. It's about working together in synergy, because at the end of the day, we all want success. We all working towards a common goal. Hey, why can't you do it together type of thing? So
you're feeding off each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And things, but the other 2 books you've written on your own, haven't you?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So the first one came out, I believe it was 2014, and then another one 2017.
Right. Okay. So how did you come to write those? You just decided one day, I need to get this out of her.
Well, first book, believe it or not, was when I made a transition from a previous industry of, I suppose, sports performance coaching into what we do now. We went on this, I call it an accelerator program, where one of the processes is they get you to write a book so that you can stamp your authority in a particular industry or whatever it is, or niche. So I decided to do that. For me, I never wrote a book, never thought I'd write a book. But the first book was mainly specifically targeted towards professional executive men and women in the city that wanted to basically get themselves in shape. So it was more kind of around corporate well-being, things like that. And then we relaunched the second version of that book, and it was more guided towards HR directors and teams. And now, obviously, we've now adapted our model now on this particular book that's coming out, which is more guided towards, again, established business owners and how to become more resourceful and adaptable in an ever-changing environment.
Right. Okay. Because so that's interesting, the whole evolution and now the collaboration. And if you were going on to write a 4th book, would you do that again as a collaboration, or would you do it on your own?
Good question. Do you know, I don't know the answer to that right now, if I'm honest with
No,
you. Purely
really.
because the third one's coming out. We'll probably have an audio book. I'm thinking about. I've actually got another passion project which we've launched actually in the last sort of 4 weeks or so,
Right.
which is all around saving the world's oceans of plastic pollution. So that's kind
Mm,
of a passion project which I've kind of fallen into,
yeah.
um, and I'm going to be working on that, and going to be blowing that out to the media and the journalists as well. So I'm super excited about that because
Yeah.
that's a real world problem.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally.
and uh,
I'm with you.
and we've created a piece of we're actually going to be creating a piece of AI and data where we can collect information about how to get to the core source of the problem, so that we can fix these challenges.
Yeah, no, I'd be interested to learn more about that. So please keep in touch because
Will do.
I used to be a scuba instructor, one of my other
Ah,
roles. So the world's oceans are something that I'm actually, have a vested interest in, if you like. Things. There was, so one of the other things that I wanted to just quickly touch on, because we are nearly out of time, I can't believe how quickly this hour's gone, is about how keeping fit can benefit your business, because it's actually something that I'm quite under the radar passionate about, but it's always lovely to hear from somebody else who shares similar values.
yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, this year in particular and last year, people are
Mm,
beginning to realize that self-care
yeah,
is one of the most important, especially from a mental health perspective. Um, and we now know, I've known for many years, but we now know as individuals, as human beings, that the more fit we are mentally,
yeah,
physically, spiritually, and emotionally, that
yeah,
pays dividends with profitability,
yeah,
with regards to your actual own company.
yeah,
Um, and a lot of corporate companies have really invested a lot into programs which is all
mhm,
guided towards supporting their employees or their team, to
yeah,
be able to give them the right resources. And there's a lot of there's a lot of research coming out now which is proving like the 4-day work week is actually much more productive than a 5-day. So in Iceland,
yeah,
for example, they carried out a study on a number of companies. They found that doing
yeah.
4-day work week, Monday to Thursday, 9.5 hours was far more productive than doing 5 8-hour work days. So a lot of
Interesting.
companies are beginning to, and also with flexible working and working from
Yeah,
home, and
yeah.
because at the end of the day, you know, um, we're all human beings. We're not robots.
Exactly. So for you, it's about mental fitness as well as actual physical fitness.
100%.
Yeah.
It all fits into like a big. It all fits into one at the end of the day. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about physical fitness, mental fitness, emotional, spiritual fitness.
Yeah.
They all play an important role in terms of
Yeah.
your own well-being, but also how that pays dividends in terms of your increased productivity and profitability in your business as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was just I have a physical products business that COVID decimated because it's mascara. Mascara means face mask in Spanish. So it's a COVID-19 sensitive word. So it can't be advertised on Google. So I was a bit fed up and miserable and brainstormed and built this community that we're in tonight.
Cool.
And yeah, but there was still something going on. There was still something holding me back. So at the end of May, actually, I took one step back and thought, you know what? I need to work on me again. I've been sort of dilly-dallying about working on me. And I decided to invest in me and become single-minded about me and how I was feeling, and I actually put myself on a strict diet, started moving more, drinking more water. The sleep is still a work in progress, but oh my golly, the energy, the lack of brain fog, how it translates because I'm taking care of me. I've got better boundaries. It's incredible how the impacts and knock-on effects it has.
Absolutely. Clears your mind. that's the thing. Like, you can. The thing is that work will never go away. We're all going to become so overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
And what made me laugh, actually, it kind of made me laugh. I remember in the news, actually, where they were interviewing business owners and entrepreneurs, where they were basically saying, "Oh, my work week has basically, tripled or whatever it is. Oh, I can't think. But the reality is that when you run your own business, you have the flexibility to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, and it's your choice at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter about the economic, things that's happening in the world. You still have a choice, and that's what people have to realize. Ultimately, we were living in Cyprus for the last 7 months, and I was a digital nomad. So again, I was. We had the opportunity to have a great life, but that's because we chose that life. Anyone could choose that life too, based on choices. But it's up to the individual, of course.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm with you on that. But anyway, we have actually just gone over the hour. So I would like to say a huge thank you for joining me this evening and giving up your time. And especially as it's your last night in the UK before you head back to Sweden. So thank you. If anybody has got any last minute questions for Adam, then if you're very quick and post them in. Otherwise, we'll wrap up for this evening, and I will see you back here next week at 7:00 with fascinating. Elizabeth actually used to be a PT, so she's all been about physical well-being. She's now moved into helping people eat a better diet for themselves and move more and things. And then David, who's joined us this evening, is heavily into his rugby league, I believe. So
very nice.
Yeah, exactly. So very much into that whole discipline of training and looking after themselves. Right, guys, I will see you back here next week, and thank you very much for joining us. And we will have a fantastic week and weekend.
Cheers, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey, you guys, I just want to say thank you so much for listening in to this episode of the Game Changers Experience. I hope that you got some amazing value, some great insights, and golden nuggets that you can implement into your business straight away. I would really, really appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review on the button below. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.